Welcome everyone to Frontier Opening Bell. It's another day on the market street, the 19th of March. I am Busi Namafayed. Thank you very much for making the time to watch the show online across our social media platforms as well. Let's get the market started. A very brutal Monday for the Egyptian stock market. The rally that started at the devaluation of the Egyptian pounds just about 2 weeks ago faded out on Sunday when the market started. Is on week in Cairo in a negative position, less than 1%. That went more deeper in the head in terms of an air cut, 6.34% on Monday when the rest of Frontier Africa and the rest of the world broadly reopened for the third business and markets week in the month of March. So you saw the EGX down sharply below the 30,000 psychological index reading. That rally, that buoyancy, the sentiment is fading as we look at the currency and what further support Egypt will get from around the world. But let's leave that debate till later. Checking with the other markets, the Nigerian stocks also fell by 0.4%. That roughly 300 billion naira haircut for the total market value as investors are booked profit on MTN Nigeria, as well as Zenith Bank, one of Nigeria's largest lender, by 1.79%. We saw a few decliners as well. Broadly speaking, the Nigerian market sentiment was positive with it roughly above 9,000 transactions. And of course, if you look at the number of gainers vis-a-vis the number of losers, you find that they are gainers outweighing the laggards in a manner of speaking. But the sentiment was positive despite in the banking sector in the main and a few other segments of that market. The BRVM went up very strongly, 1.04%. That was Monday. Again, we saw the shares of stock shares, the CGNR, and a few others lifting the Ivorian markets, the French-speaking West African bourse, to a very strong Monday, despite declines that we saw in a few names such as the Bank of Africa listed on that market. The Ghana stock market made a very strong gain yesterday, a very strong 1.8% on the main index as the news came in from the IMF chief, Christina Georgieva, who is currently in Accra, saying that a deal with the IMF for further funding support for Ghana is near at hand. The news coming through this morning was a deal has been reached and that the deal with the creditors for the foreign debt program of Ghana has also been concluded with China and a few other lenders. The good news actually got the stock market roaring on Monday. Quite a very strong day in Ghana. How much will be placed on the table for Nana Akufo-Addo's administration before the elections in December is anyone's guess. We'll get to wait for more clarity on that. The Nairobi stock market fell just to the doorsteps of 100 reading on the composite. The NSE 25 was even deeper, roughly 12% on Monday, as we saw a very big volume or turnover traded on the shares of Safaricom and KCB Group as well as Kengen. In South Africa, the bourse fell 0.77%. The financials, the industrials, and the resources were in the negative territory, and that was in correlation with the rest of emerging markets softening at the start of Monday with the outlook on interest rate decision by the FOMC and the Bank of Japan. What do we get this morning? The Bank of Japan raised interest rate for the first time since 2007, putting an end to that regime of ultra-low negative interest rates in one of the world's biggest and strongest economy. The Bank of Japan has now raised rates, and all eyes are now on what the FOMC, the US Fed, will decide on tomorrow, Wednesday, the 20th, whether the FOMC will leave rates at between 5.25% and 5%, and whether the Fed fund rate could be cut back sometime later in the year. The bets are getting off that the US Fed will cut rates by June. Let's take that off the street and go on to the East African corridor and check a few of the headlines as we start the new week. And of course, Kenya's central bank says it's resisting the move by dealers and investors to take Treasury bills rate to around 17%. The government of President William Ruto is not willing to pay more for those Treasury bills, trying to contain the country's fiscal balance. In the meantime, Bloomberg is reporting that Kenya, Morocco, South Africa, and Egypt's central banks will diverge with the rest of emerging markets as far as interest rates is concerned. Egypt did an unexpected 6% rate hike last month. And of course, we're now looking at the South Africa's Reserve Bank rate decision next week. Kenya's diaspora remittances, and also good news for Nairobi, as that figure dipped to about $385 million last month. ABSA, Kenya, reporting its earnings for the full year 23, income in at about 54.6 billion shillings, profit after tax about 60.4 billion shillings, and return on equity reported at 23.7% for the last 12 months, January to December of last year. And Tanzania is raising its budget by 11% because of the elections that's just around the corner and the hosting of the African Cup of Nations, the soccer fiesta for all African countries. Those that qualify, Tanzania is co-hosting that in 2027. Let's get on to West Africa and check through with some of the stories. Of course, the Ghana stories was the biggest story just yesterday and this morning. The IMF President Nana Akufo-Addo is hosting the IMF chief, Christina Georgieva. She also participated at a AI technology conference yesterday, where she spoke about the need for AI to be used to support the transformation of African economies. She spoke on a panel which had other top Ghanaian officials from the private sector and the government as well. In Nigeria, the new head of the Bank of Industry, Olusi, says he has a new 6 thematic areas for his own agenda, which includes SMEs, gender empowerment, investing in women, digital transformation or digital technology, as well as climate funding and a couple of others. And those were some of the points that the new BOI mentioned at his first interface with the financial media in Lagos on Monday afternoon. And the IMF says he has approved about $1.3 billion resilience and sustainability facility deal with Cote d'Ivoire, while Liberian President Buhari has submitted his first budget to the parliament. That's about $690 million US. You've been briefed. Let's move on to Southern Africa. Again, all eyes on South Africa's Reserve Bank next week for the decision, but it's going to be a very busy week for this week in terms of economic data, with the Bureau of Economic Research releasing some numbers between today and Thursday. We will keep track of all of that. Mauritius Central Bank is also, interest rate is on top, as well as the country's inflation, all of that in the news. Malawi inflation came in about 1.5% weaker at about 33.5% last month. That's no good news for a country where the FX crunch, foreign currency crunch, is affecting the commercial banks that are supposed to participate at the central bank's auctions. And of course, the country is facing droughts as well, impacting food production. And that's also similar story playing out in Zimbabwe, also facing crops withering because of the hot temperatures that we're all facing around the world right now. Zimbabwe says about 2.7 million citizens are at the risk of food insecurity or hunger, to put it more stark reality. Zambia also just declared a national disaster and, of course, an emergency from President Ichilema as well, looking to see what more could be done to support Zambia as well. So you've got Zambia, Zimbabwe, the Malawi facing this crunch of climate change across the South Frontier Africa in a manner of speaking. Zimbabwe, however, got some good news. The NBM Bank of Zimbabwe says it's got about $15 million transaction guarantee from the AFDB group, while we are looking at those economic data for the rest of the week. Let's keep those headlines in mind as we get on with today's markets day. Let's finish off in North Africa. And of course, we'll talk about the rally out of the Egyptian stock market. Let's see how the markets will rebound and what further support Egypt will get, with the World Bank looking to provide Egypt about $6 billion support over the next 3 years, while the European Union is looking at about $8 billion US. Put that together, that's some money on the table. And Egypt could use further support from its friends within the Arab world, the UAE, as well as Saudi Arabia. Tomorrow, 20th of March, we'll be looking at the formal unveiling of FEDA, and that's the Fund for Export Development for Africa, which is an initiative of the Afrexim Bank, of course, which is subscribed to by the sovereigns across the continent. The new fund is specifically targeted at development of Africa's exports within the new Intra-Africa Trade Program. The official launch of that program will be in the morning in Kigali, Rwanda. And that's where that will be taking place at the Kigali International Conference Center, the KICC. And you can watch it online as well. It's a very great day. Another step forward for Frontier Africa. And we say congratulations to Afrexim Bank and everyone else that put this together. Egyptian Natural Gas Holdings says it's expanding its business in Saudi Arabia with additional 2 million riyals on the table. And Morocco says it's secured about 100 million euros AFDB loan for infrastructure projects that are sustainable within the North African economy. And finally, Tunisia's private sector will get some support from the US companies which are looking at new projects within the North African country to support moving forward as part of the relationship between the US and Tunisia, north of the continent. And those are your headlines this Tuesday, the 19th of March. I am Bosin Amofa. You have a great day, and I'll see you soon.